Good morning and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Prashant Bhavani. I hope you all are doing good today, 16th June. And let's see what we have got in the Hindu today. The man who has no imagination has no wings has been said by Muhammad Ali. What do you understand by this statement? We have 4 articles to go through. Today is Saturday, so you don't have 2 full pages of articles. One article is based on Shimla water crisis. We have got a special video lecture available for you guys on this item. So if you want, just check out YouTube channel of StudyIQ, go to the playlist and you will find UPSC IAS burning topics. And if you go in it, this particular playlist, you will find this special video lecture on Shimla water crisis. Apart from that, these 4 articles, we are going to analyze all 4 of them in detail, in-depth analysis. With this, StudyIQ provides pen drive and tablet courses for various different exams. At present, we are providing 50% discount. And this is going to last till tomorrow, that is 17th June. Make the most out of it. Any question or queries, these are our numbers and this is our website here. Right, check out our website. You will find all important information pertaining to our pen drive and tablet courses from our portal. You have chat support and everything. With this, if you want to get in touch with me, this is my Facebook page. This is my Twitter handle. Don't forget to hit the like button and don't forget to share this lecture with your friends. Now, the person that you can see on your screen, his name is Sujat Bukhari. It is very sad that he is killed by terrorists. Terrorist attack took place, and not only him, his security guards as well were hunted down by this terrorist at close range. They came very close to this person. And by the way, he is a journalist. He was editor of a very famous newspaper of Kashmir. He used to be a correspondent of the Hindu newspaper as well, and for a very long period of time he stood for what is right. He came out with some suggestions, suggestions that were not acceptable to this terrorist groups. His suggestions were radical. His suggestions were out of the box. So this is what happened with him. But the good thing about, again I'm using the word good thing, is that what you can say, this is the highest that you can get from your profession. You know, just like soldiers, just like a person from Army, Navy or Air Force, we have seen this thing in many movies, and this is not just from movies. This is something that they genuinely feel, a soldier believes this thing, and this is somewhere true as well, that if a soldier whilst serving or whilst serving the country or whilst on duty, if a soldier embraces death or becomes martyr, then this is the biggest reward, or this is something, not reward, but I would rather say this is something that they were born for, and they have achieved that thing. That's what they believe, and somewhere it is right as well. Of course, we have to keep this thing in mind, that we don't want violence, but it is these brave soldiers who protect us from all these intruders and all those attacks taking place. And if you go through books of APJ and other you can say famous people who know many things about society, who knows many things about security and other things, you will find one thing, that without proper security, you cannot have any sort of development. If you want to see a country or society develop in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of other things, without a secure environment, you cannot have anything. Take example of Afghanistan, take example of Pakistan, take example of all those areas of J&K, where you have this sort of things going on. And whilst I was talking about giving you this example of soldiers, something means it is something that applies to us as well, to all people. If you are working, if you are a student, then your duty is to study, and for that you have to take a bit of pain. Whatever comes, let it come, but you have to stick with your education, or you can say self-investment. When I say self-investment, I'm talking about educating yourself. Same thing applies with journalists as well, and I think he has reached that peak, we can call him martyr as well. Any person who, whilst doing their duty, it's not just about soldier, it applies to any person, right? Any person. If they are doing what they are doing or what they are supposed to do, and if they are doing it with wholeheartedness, then they should be given respect. And journalists, right, they play a very important role. They risk their lives because of that thing. We can analyze all this. They risk their lives, they risk so many things just to, at the end of the day, when they hit the bed, they find this thing that at least, right, the work that they have done, the hard work that they have done, will benefit society. They feel this good thing that they have added something to the society. Same applies to medical personnel, same applies to teachers, same applies to engineers, everyone. If we see the good side of what we are doing, then you will feel a sort of intrinsic satisfaction that whatever you are doing is adding value, positive value to society. So this is what it is. This is something that is going on in Jammu and Kashmir, and this is not going to stop us, right? We are not going to be afraid of speaking what is right. And the sad thing is that Eid ul Fitr, on the eve of Eid, right, this sort of things are conducted or executed by this people, and this terrorist people. They say that they claim to be Muslims, but they don't belong to any religion at all, right? Because no religion teach you, it imparts you or asks you to conduct violence. In fact, if you talk about Islam, you might have heard about this thing that Islam stands for peace, and Salam Alaikum, again, this greeting talks about peace. So if these people are claiming that they are Muslims, then they are not at all Muslims, right? They are not human either. Now, whichever terrorist group chose to kill him would have been aware of the consequences of the death as well. This is not the first instance. We have seen this a martyr or a soldier, right? Aurangzeb, he was kidnapped and he was killed. In Bandipur, we saw two Jawans were killed, two policemen were killed in Pulwama. So this sort of things are going on, and Gauri Lankesh was killed. We have a news update about Gauri Lankesh in today's Hindu. You find so many people who are standing for something that they genuinely believe that is right. We find people who are, enlightening other people in our society, and they are attacked, they are killed. And it is not just about any particular government. It's not that you have BJP, so this sort of things are going on. It's not that when you will have Congress, or when we used to have Congress, this sort of things will stop, right? This is all, means people are there, they will try to fetch brownie points out of this sort of incidents. They will associate this thing with this government and that government. But what we need is, we need a proper system. No one is asking this sort of questions, that why can't we build a proper system in which, right, institutions, which no matter which government is in power, you could have Congress, BJP, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, right? Any person will be prime minister or chief minister. But if you have this proper respect for rules and regulation, if you have proper institutions that will follow, if a murder takes place, then they will follow standard operating procedures. No matter who calls you, even prime minister calls you or president calls you, they will, right, follow this investigation as or the way they should. Until and unless we don't inculcate this sort of things, right, we are going to see this blame game, that because of this party and that party, things are going on. And something similar has been discussed in one lead that we are going to discuss today, right? Something similar. You can have this, you can connect this thing. Over the decades, Bukhari enlightened readers even as he mentored journalists. As I told you that, I don't think so I have told you, but he was Hindu's correspondent as well, the Hindu newspaper's correspondent too. So hats off to this person, right? Lord bless his soul. Temple and State. This is about secularism. The Act of Supremacy, enacted in 1534, declared that the monarch was the supreme head of the Church of England. The Archbishop of Canterbury and other high-level church officials were appointed by government. So if we go back in the history, what we find is that a king or queen or monarchy was having a very good relationship with clergy. And if we go back in the history of our country, you will read this thing in your NCERTs and other reference books, that religion is something that people are associated with. We have a sort of identity with religion. If you are wearing a skull cap, or if you are wearing a cap, you are a Muslim or a Jew. Then if you are carrying a tika on your forehead, then you are a Hindu. If you are wearing a cross on around your neck, then you are a Christian. So all these things are part of identity. Now, if you analyze this thing a bit further, you will find that our identity changes throughout our day. I have talked about this thing earlier on as well. If you want to read more about it, then there is a very wonderful book written by Amartya Sen on this identity. Can't remember the name, but if you search Amartya Sen and identity on Google, you will find this book. Now, or the name of this book, I mean to say. Now, the thing is, if we go back in the history of our country, what we find is that, this priests or clergy people, they used to declare a person who was having all these qualities of a good administrator or a good king, at that point of time, they used to announce that person's name, and to make sure that this particular person gets respect from all these people or subject or citizens, right? Whatever name you can, whichever you think is right, you can give it. You can call them citizens or you can call them subjects. It depends in different part of the world, and it's all different. In India it was different, in Harappa it was different. If you see in South India it was different. At the same time in Egypt it was altogether different. So there used to be this religious people who will give this assurity, this religious assurity that the king is son of Lord or goddess, etc. And this is how it used to work. Now, whatever money or profit that you generate by conquering other land, or by any sort of mining, if you get some gold or anything, then a part was given to the clergy. So this was a sort of relationship that these two groups were sharing with each other, and something similar that we can see in England as well. It's not just about India, it's about, if we go back in Europe, we find the same thing. Now, new monarchs were crowned by senior member of clergy. So they were, when new monarch will come in, he or she will be given this, this ceremony will be conducted by clergy, and bishops were represented in the House of Lords. House of Lords is their Rajya Sabha of England. So much of this remains true even today. Now, how then did the idea of secularism took root in our country? We are talking about, when we say secularism, this article is talking about more about, acts. It's more on the legal side rather than societal side. So we will talk about societal side as well. Now, when East India Company came into our country, let me tell you one thing, if you are not aware about this thing, they were not at all interested in the politics of our country. Before East India Company, British East India Company, this Portuguese East India Company was already operating here in our country. Now, when they came in with this merchants, other people like adventurers, you have explorers, then you have some missionary or people belonging to church, they arrived in India, right, with this Portuguese East India Company people. Now, Christianity was something that was already here in our country, right? We have Syrio-Malabar Christians. They are somewhere around 2,000-year-old Christians living in, or Christians have been living in our country from last 2,000 years. So in parts of Kerala, in parts of South India, it was not that new, right? Christianity was not that new. But in other parts of our country, people were following their own ways of living. They were having their own religion. It was a bit different than what we have today. But Portuguese people, they started converting people. And this was resisted by the people of our country at that point of time. it was resisted. People were afraid about this thing, and etc., etc. So because at that point of time there was a bit of superstition was going on in our country, so the people rejected this new religion that was being introduced by this Portuguese people. Anyways, when British East India Company came in, they already saw this, this is one of the reasons why Portuguese failed in our country in many parts, right? Because they tried to convert people, and this was rejected by the people. And earlier on, if you see kings or people coming from different parts of the world, before this Europeans came in, we see different, particularly Muslim kings coming from, or Muslim people coming from different parts of like Turkey and Afghanistan and other parts. They came here, but they never interfered with the way of life. In fact, they became part of the society. So they were not resisted by the people, but this Portuguese people, they tried to do this thing, etc. So a big story into short version. This was, on very early days, British East India Company realized that there is no point of interfering with the people and with their religion and with their beliefs, etc. So this was earlier on decided, and later on what we find is that even in their act of conduct, right, we find that they used to give money for, or they used to celebrate this Pongal and Ramzan. They used to offer religious, money or emoluments or religious offerings were given by this public officers of British East India Company if monsoon was good. So they were equal, or they were treating different religions equally. And this is said as seed of secularism in our country. Again, I must say that we are talking about this law side. We are not talking about this societal side. So all these annoyed Christian missionaries and members of the clergy in England and India who put pressure on the government. So government British government decided that in 1833 that this court of directors of British East India Company, right, they will not interfere, they will not give away gifts and all these things. It was written in a letter that the directors, this religious rights that were harmless, out to be tolerated, however false, whatever, if they are right or wrong, it's fine. Don't interfere, don't give any gifts or anything. Stay away from the religious affairs of the people of our country. This was been said by this company. So this is considered as seed of secularism in our country. Then later on what we find is that see, the founding fathers, they rejected this idea of staying away, this idea of secularism, that state should not at all, there should not be any sort of interference from state, not giving gifts and other things. All these things was rejected by this Indian founding fathers. They said that this is not possible. We have to do a little bit of interference, not negatively, but they were more approaching this positively. Now, this is something that is important for your prelims, that after this Government of India Act 1919, Indian legislature came to power at the provinces, right, in different provinces. Now, what we find in 1926, this Religious Endowment, Madras Hindu Religious Endowment Act came in, and it established this boards, and this temple trustees had to furnish accounts to and obey the instruction of these boards, and even these boards can decide the surplus money, how it should be spent and things like that. So when we were framing our constitution, B.R. Ambedkar said this thing, K.T. Shah said this thing, that we should stay away from, we should not recognize any religion at all. H.V. Kamath talked about this, something similar. But what we find is that Supreme Court has allowed governments to heavily regulate Hindu temples. What we find is that even today, right, the priest of a Hindu temple are appointed by the government. This is considered as a secular activity. This is something that has again created, there is a bridge between politicians and religious people. Now, whether this is right or wrong, I will leave it on you guys to think about it. But one thing that I would like to add here is that if you go back in the history of our country, you will find one thing. There are so many examples. I'm not sure whether you have came across this sort of examples, but these are factual examples that Muslim kings have built Hindu temples, right? Muslim kings, if they were having Hindu population, and if there was a demand, then they have built this Hindu temples. Same thing happens or has happened with Hindu kings and Muslim population. Hindu kings have given money for building mosques and shrines and other things. So either you can be equal with everyone, or you should not have any interference at all with religion. And one more thing, nowadays we find that people are getting too much sentimental. You know, that consciousness about religion and politics has been fading away nowadays. People get too aggressive. Even if you are saying one point, if you feel that something is right and something is not right, your opinion are, you know, rejected very badly. And this is happening in our country online. All those students and people who are educated, if this is something that is coming or done by them, then this is a matter of worry for us. Then this is something related to it, a spate of lynching. Democracy establishes a conversation between citizens and the power elites. The conversation here means you have a relation, right? There is a relation between citizens and people who are elected by us, or people who are in power. Now the thing is, what happens when the people in power, they are doing something that is something wrong, that is something that they should not do. In these cases, it is this associations, right? When you are in group, united in group, you are powerful, particularly in democratic setup. And this is the reason why associations are celebrated, right? Associations can protect individual. If something goes wrong with an individual, then it is this association or this group that can work as a pressure group on government. Now, for this and related reasons, associations are considered indispensable for democratic life. It's not that once you have democracy, once you have constitution, everything will be right. No, you will find a bit of wrong things as well. So this sort of groups or this civil society, right, it protects you from this anarchy or wrong things done by the government. Now, if the state is marked by the logic of power, very important statement, the market dominated by that of profit, the logic of civil society is that of solidarity and civility. Now, this article talks about murders that are going on in our society, like Muhammad Akhlaq's murder, and this is very sad. We have seen many this sort of cases going on in our society. We find this inflexibly drawn between this line of insider and outsider. We have seen many religious, or you can say so-called religious groups who say that you can eat this and you cannot eat this thing. Vice President has said this thing very clearly, that you can eat anything that you like, right? No one has right to judge anyone based on the clothes that they wear. No one has right to judge anyone based on the food that they eat. You could be vegetarian, non-vegetarian. It's your choice, right? It's your choice. But there are people out there who make fuss out of it. They make, you know, they have some vested. They will create this fear in you, and based on this fear, how much you are afraid, based on that thing, they will exploit it. We find violence going on in our country. Now, the thing is, this article is talking about this current government. Now, it could be that thing. One of the reasons could be that government. Again, I will leave it on you guys. I don't want to say yes that this government is responsible. I don't want to say that this government is not responsible. You have to find out whether this government is responsible or whether it is not. It's something that, as a citizen of our country, we have to ask this question to ourselves and find out whether this is right or wrong. But again, as we were talking about these institutions, isn't it, that we have to build these institutions that can protect. If you have a political party that wants to spread this or that agenda, right, then you should have strong institutions. Like if murders are going on, then what is this law and other department, right? What is or what are the things that they are doing, or what are the things they are supposed to do, and if they are doing it or not. One of the reasons why you find is that bureaucracy, right? They have this immunity. Even if you perform it, if you are performing very well, or if you are not performing right, you will stay in the power. One thing that we have to do is get rid of all these non-performers. Couple of days ago we were talking about this lateral entry, that if you are expert in any field, then you can join bureaucracy of our country. What about non-performers? If we are bringing experts in, then we have to make some extra space, right? We have to get rid of all those non-performers. And if they are supposed to look after and protect people and society, then why they are not able to do it, right? What are the things that are stopping them? All these things we have to ask questions. Youngsters, do we train our youngsters, right, to ask questions, right? Can you genuinely say that we allow our youngsters to ask questions about everything that is going on, right? Do we offer them choice to choose their own religion, right? Do we offer them choice to choose their own school once they whether they want to, what they want to eat, right? If a child prefers vegetarian food, then do you think this will be allowed in a family that is non-vegetarian? These are a few examples. Couple of days ago I saw this thing, right? This is coming from a real example. I was in a saloon and I saw this kid, right? This kid was riding this two-wheeler. His father came with this, means his kid, definitely he was not having license, first thing, right? He was somewhere in 10th or 11th standard, I'm not sure, but he was very young. I'm sure he was not having license. He was riding this two-wheeler. His father was behind him, and when they entered this saloon, I entered with them, so I know this whole thing. And when I entered, when we were sitting down over there waiting there, his father said that you cannot have this sort of haircut. The kid was asking for a particular haircut. The father said no, etc. Anyways, what we learn from this sort of incidents, right, that you are not allowing basic freedom, right? If you don't allow basic freedom, how can you expect then this whole setup of society will be, no one will question things that are going wrong, and someone will come and tell you that it is happening because of this party, or it is happening because of this people, etc., etc., and we believe. So these are the things we need to question. Only then we would be able to find the right answer, and once we identify the main problem, only then we can solve this thing of secularism, non-secularism, this people hating that people hating those people, etc. Sweet nothing. This is about GST. This is about sugarcane farmers. Now this is more about demand and supply. Too much of sugarcane production, too much of sugar production, and lack of consumption. So definitely prices are going to fall down. Now recently Centre has proposed a cess, right, special cess under GST. This will help a government to pay something to sugarcane farmers. Now Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has approved 7,000 crore package for sugar sector last week. This package is a mix of this minimum support price, and at the same time it will look after this this sugar producing factories, right? It will look after them as well. So this is something that government is trying to achieve. Now the big problem is that as far as dues are concerned, it is 22,000 crore, and here we are talking about 6,700 crore. So it is going to be just a small chunk of the problem that we have. The other thing is minimum support price that government is going to pay is 29 rupees per kilo, but this industry people, they are saying that 35 rupees per kilo is going to be their production price. So for time being, this 29 rupees is going to help them with this working capital problem or liquidity problem, but this is not going to solve the problem of this sugarcane farmers forever. What we need is that rather than politicizing this sort of sugarcane issues and making points out of it, we need to educate our farmers. We need to provide them market information, like this much production is taking place, or if we have excessive sugar in our market, then this is not going to help us. In fact, it is not going to be affordable, right, viable. So we have to diversify our crop, and we have to, based on information, if we educate our farmers, if we support them, give a sort of hand holding, then gradually we can sort out this problem of payment. At the same time, we will help them diversify their cropping decision, or their cropping decision we can influence them, make it a bit more right, and we can protect them. This is the only way, long-term solution. Or else, as far as politics is concerned, they will, this sort of things, right, bailout and these packages will go on, and this is not right for economy. USA strike has killed this person here. He was responsible for this Peshawar school attack and Malala Yousafzai's attack as well. High UIDAI charges are leaving these banks stressed. Sri Ram Sena men shot Gauri. So here you find this again in the name of religion. People are trying to kill other people. This is again, these people don't belong to this people, right? These people, they don't belong to any religion as far as I am concerned. USA tariff to hit imports from China, and China is going to impose equal tariffs. So this sort of things are not going to be beneficial for India and globalization or global growth. The center allows pulse import despite overflowing. So here again you find demand and supply mismatch, and trade deficit has widened. These are some important articles for you guys. Wonderful picture, boys praying on this occasion of Eid. Again, Eid Mubarak to all of you guys, and these are your answers. I have got 2 questions for you. Tomorrow is Sunday. I will see you all. Tomorrow I will be a bit late, around 11 or 12, right? I will bring some interesting articles. I will analyze some interesting items associated with your mains examination. That's everything in today's discussion. Thank you very much. Don't forget to share this lecture, and don't forget to hit the like. Thank you. Goodbye. God bless. Jai Hind.